How's it going, everyone? This is Kevin. Today I want to bring along with me to teach you how to speed up your portraits editing in Photoshop. So let's jump right into it. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Thank you so much for being here. If you don't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you haven't, I like to provide as much information as I can to you guys with some photo editing tips, video, photography, and everything in between. So if you're into that, don't forget to subscribe down below. As we all know, if you do portraits and everything like that of photos and editing, you know they can take a while to edit for the skin retouching and all the touch-ups that you need to do when it comes down to portraits. I wanted to teach you the method that I use when it comes down to editing portraits, kind of to speed up my workflow with some Photoshop actions. So I'm going to teach you the way that I edit my retouch portraits, and I'm going to teach you the action that I created for myself to just speed up the process when it comes down to retouching any portraits that I take or have to edit for people. The method that I use is simply just to smoothen out skin, get some of that imperfection out, and make sure that everything just looks pretty subtle but soft and nice when it comes down to the retouching part of the portraits. So I'm going to teach you the way that I do that, and I'm going to show you how to create that action so that way you can use it every time that you go ahead and edit portraits. This method will show you how to retouch your portraits without being destructive, but I'll get more into detail once we get into Photoshop, so let's get straight to it. So now that you've imported your photo into Photoshop, you can either do this by being in Lightroom and then hitting the basically right clicking it to send it to Photoshop to edit further or anything like that. That's usually what I do whenever I'm editing photos in Lightroom, just to send them to Photoshop, do the retouches, and then send them back. So I've already applied all the color grading that I wanted to do for this photo, and that's just basically how I wanted it to look. So now I'm going to teach you the method that I usually do. So I either first just want to clear up any like kind of minor imperfections by creating a copy with Control J, and then with that you can just hit J and then you'll get right here. So you can come in and basically just, this is a tool right here that you're using, the healing brush tool. So you can pick a spot and then just start kind of clicking away to the minor imperfections that you want to click and make sure that they're not there. Sometimes, you know, it is what it is, so just edit that way, just minor things with that scenario. Now, how we'll create the action that we fully want to be using is called a frequency separation. If you see up here, I already have it set for myself because I've already created it. Basically, I'm going to show you what it does real quick. I'm just going to hit play and it's just going to do what it needs to do. So we need to move this one down because that's not the final one that we need. So basically here we have our layers. So one of them is going to be for basically smoothing out the color of like the skin to kind of like even it out, and the other one's going to be more for texture, which I'll get more in depth here shortly on what I did exactly to get to where I am now. I'm not going to get fully in depth what frequency separation is, but if you want more information, I'll make sure to make a video next time about it if you want more detail into that matter. But with that said, we're just gonna basically delete this right now, this group, because we don't need it. So we have our layer 1 copy 2, which what I usually do is basically just double that up, because you're gonna go to layer 1 of the copy 2, which we're just gonna go with color, and then the one on top will go with detail, right? So if I want to make sure that I'm having this basically method to be recorded up here, what we're gonna have to do is just basically, let's pretend that we're starting over. So now that we have it all back to square one, basically what we're gonna have to do is you'll hit this plus sign right here, is create new action. You can name it whatever you want to, frequency separation tutorial. That's what I'll name mine, and it starts recording. So what I usually do, it creates layer 1, layer 2, then I'll have it named for color, and then detail. So for the color, we're gonna go down to, or up here I guess, for filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and then you're just gonna basically kind of add whatever you want to of the Gaussian blur. I usually keep it around, you know, 3 or 4 kind of pixels. It's more than enough. You don't want to go too crazy with it. It's just where it like blurs it up enough. So I hit OK. And now for the detail part, I'm gonna go to image, apply image. So I already had it all set up, but this is the default that'll go to, will be I think normal or multiply. I think this is the one that it goes to. So what you wanna do is select the layer color, and then go down to basically subtract. Make sure in scale right here, it's set to 2, offset 128. And if you know frequency separation, that's basically just to basically do the frequency separation. I'm not gonna spend too much detail with that right now, but we're just gonna hit OK. And now for this one in detail, we're gonna go down to linear light, and that's pretty much it. So then what I do is just group these two right here, and then that's pretty much it. And then I just hit the stop button right there. So now we have our action set up for ourselves. So if I were to, let's say, delete this again, I could just go and hit FS tutorial and then hit play right here, and then look at that, it just did it all for me. So now what you can do with this is just do your minor editing or whatever you want to do, and then just kind of start brushing away whatever you need to do. So usually I use basically is the mixer brush right here. Make sure that this section right here has nothing in it. So basically like those little squares, just because that's what you need. Here are my settings for it. This is how much wetness I want it to have, the load, the mix, the flow, just because I don't want it to be too heavy on it when it comes down to the editing, because this is non-destructive, because at the end of the day, if we want to, we can just separate. So see, if I turn it off, you have now basically the original one, but now this is showing you what it's doing without damaging basically all your progress and all the work that you've done, because, well, it's easier this way. So I'm just gonna do a quick little kind of brushing through just to show you what it would look like and everything like that. You know, minor stuff, nothing too crazy, just to show you the before and after of what this will help you with your portraits, just to make them pop a little bit more and just make your work look a little bit more professional and studio-like, if you will. So if I zoom out a little bit, let's go with the before, and that's the after. It's just making sure the skin basically colors are just kind of matching more together and being blended right. So for the detail part, you'll use the clone stamp, which if you just hit S, you got it right here, or you can just go right here. So it's a clone stamp. Usually what I do with this, I make sure to just kind of try to even out the skin, where like sometimes you have a little bit of the pores kind of going too much, especially if the girls are wearing the makeup and you just want to make sure that it's not too heavy, if you will. So you can add the flow however you want to. I usually keep it relatively about 12, just so that I don't have to do as much work, because worst case scenario, I can lower the opacity and then be fine, just so it doesn't look too caked on, if you will. But that's just a little minor edits that you want to start doing right here, you know, just to smoothen out any skin and imperfections that you might see. And you know, that's just basically what it is. So I'm gonna speed this part through so you just see what I'm doing. And there you go. So that's basically the before, the after with the skin retouch up. So if you want to, like if you feel like it's too much, you just can lower the opacity to 0 and slowly but surely start bringing it up to see what you want and like. So for example, I usually kind of would keep it around like 90 sometimes, just because the color or anything like that, I don't want it to be too distracting and too heavy in a sense that it's like, oh, it's clearly way edited. But that way you just kind of have a little bit of, you know, smoothness going, and it just looks a little bit nicer. You don't want it to be too caked on, if that makes any sense. If you want to do some bonus points, basically what I do, I go to the curves and then I just bring this up all the way like there, and then I do Control I to invert it. Now I go back to the brush, but I get the actual brush tool, and then I zoom in into the eye, and then I make sure that I have the color set white. If you have it in black, just hit X, it'll kind of toggle between them. So back to white, and then we'll just kind of brush right here. It'll look horrible at the beginning. You'll look like you're in Twilight or something like that, and well, depending what you're going to go for, you might keep that, I don't really know. But what you do here is you double click on the side of where the curves is, and then it'll have this underlying layer section. You'll just hold Alt, and then it'll separate it just like that, and then look at the eyes, how they start to basically just not look as harsh with the brush basically that we did. So if we go all the way, it goes all the way. So if we bring it back, it brings all the way back. So once again, if you just separate those, you kind of just find the adjustment that you think is right. Sometimes I do for each individual eye. It just depends on what I'm working on right there. So let's just pretend that that looks fine with me. Boom, a little bit of, you know, light into the eyes. And then the extra thing that I like to do is I like to add a hue saturation. The same thing, I click Control I to invert it so that we have the little black box. And now I add saturation to about like 30% basically. And then I just go to the eyes and then just start brushing into them to add more color to them so that we don't lose any detail basically. And it just looks nicer overall in my opinion. And if you don't want to do 30%, you don't have to, but that's just what I tend to use to a lot of the photos that I do. So I'm just gonna group this last one just to show you everything together. So that's the before, this is the after, before, after. So if you think it's still too much, you can then go and like start lowering just a little bit so that even at like 85% or 84, it would be more than perfectly enough. And that's my final edit. So there you go. That was my method on how I do skin retouch-ups and how I make my life easier with creating these Photoshop actions. Hopefully this will help you out to speed up your process when it comes down to your editing, and it'll make it a lot more fun to edit. I really actually do enjoy editing portraits a lot. I like doing just kind of the touch-ups that I like to do. Some people might think it's a little bit too much. Some people like it a lot. So it's just your preference. At the end of the day, whatever makes you happy and content with your photos is all that matters, because it's your creation and your art. So hopefully this will help you out to just keep creating and, you know, editing those portraits nice and smoothly. But with all that said and done, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe and share this video with a friend, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.